On November 24th, 2024, Jake's voice cut off in the middle of his lecture. 2.3 million people watched in terror as he fell down. His eyes rolled back and his skin turned gray. The real shock came when doctors found out what made it happen. A $100 million lawsuit threatens his empire, and bad rumors are going around online. Now, the untold story of Bishop Jake's fight to stay alive and protect his image is coming to light. He was born in South Charleston, West Virginia, on June 9, 1957. He was raised in a small, close-knit family by Ernest and Odette Jakes. TD was the third child and youngest. His father worked very hard and hired over 40 people to work in his cleaning business. Big places like the West Virginia Capitol building and food stores were cleaned by him. His mom taught people how to do things around the house, like cook and sew. She made sure that all of her kids knew these things, and TD found them very useful as an adult. TD's family lived in Vandalia, a divided neighborhood, when he was a little boy. In the 1960s, things were hard because of race tensions, but the Jakes' home was always a place to learn and do things. Things changed for TD when he was only 10 years old, even though everything seemed fine. Being sick with kidney disease made his dad very sick. TD helped take care of him for 6 years after that. The family is going through a tough time, but TD learned a lot about pain and kindness from it. During this time, he often stayed in his room and preached to his toy animals as if they were a big church congregation. Because he always had a Bible with him and loved talking about God, people called him Bible Boy. Even when he was young, TD was very interested in God. The ground is always moving, even when it seems still. He learned this on a trip with his father. He thought about how God works in ways we don't always understand. It wasn't easy for TD, though. In his teens, he had a time when he separated himself from his faith. At a party one night, he began singing religious songs, and something big happened. He had a strong sense of the Holy Spirit and ran out of the house. He thought about God and his purpose again at that moment. His father died when TD was 16. He had been sick with kidney disease for years. He felt terrible about it. He began to doubt God and was angry and confused. He had to take care of his family too. Also, his mother got sick, and TD quit high school 2 months before everyone else did. To take care of her, he kept going even though things were hard. He became stronger and better able to understand other people's pain because of this hard time. In the middle of this tough time, he felt called to become a preacher. He was still in pain and had questions, but he knew this was what God wanted him to do. TD did something big when he was 23 years old. He opened his first church. There were only 10 people in this small shopfront group in Montgomery, West Virginia. It was named the Greater Emmanuel Temple of Faith by him. Things weren't easy back then. To help his family and the church, TD worked at a chemical plant during the day. Sarita, his wife, worked as a DJ at a Christian radio station and also did a lot to help. They were short on cash, but got by. Their church wasn't very big or fancy. TD even played the piano for the group. He often joked that there might have been 40 people on Easter Sunday if they had counted everyone, including pregnant women and the dead. Even though it was a small church, TD was speaking in a way that made people feel like they were there. He talked about issues people were having and gave them hope. The church grew slowly, and by 1983, TD held his first meeting. There were only 80 people there. It was the start of something bigger, though. Over time, his strong words of healing and hope would reach a lot of people, mostly women who needed support. Bishop TD Jakes did something big in 1996. Only 50 families from his small church in West Virginia came with him to Dallas, Texas. He held the first service of the Potter's House in a rented building on July 28th. There were only 300 people there, but it was the start of something very big. 5,000 people came to the church in 6 months, so it had to move to a bigger place. Jakes paid $3.2 million for a 28-acre piece of land in December. Someone else used to own it, but now the Potter family lives there. There was a great first service. Over 8,000 people came, and every seat was taken. People had to stand in other places to make room. He preached with a lot of power, and his word of hope moved everyone. The church grew so quickly that a new building had to be built in 1999. It was very big. It was 191,000 square feet and cost $45 million. It had room for 8,000 people when it opened in July 2000. That's right, the church paid off the bill in only 4 years. People from all over the world changed their lives because of the Potter's House. It wasn't just a church. It's crazy how much the Potter's House has grown. 10,000 people were going to the church by the end of 1997. There were 20,000 after 2 years. Because so many people wanted to go, they started having 3 Sunday services in 2000. Over 23,000 people came every week. People of all races and walks of life went to the church, which shows how diverse Dallas is. About 30,000 people joined the church by 2005, making it one of the biggest in the United States. It wasn't the end of the Potter's House. It opened sites in Fort Worth, Denver, and other places. On 2010 New Year's Eve, the church sent its service to different places, and more than 40,000 people seen it in one night. 32,000 people show up every week. The church grew to be one of the most important in the country. TD, Jakes did more than just make the church bigger. He wrote best-selling books and made films. Woman, his first big book, came out in the New York Times. It came out in 1993. It was on bestseller lists for 75 weeks and sold more than 3 million copies. Jake became popular as a writer after writing that book. He went on to write more than 40 books that sold more than 20 million copies. Some of his books were even #1 on big lists of bestsellers. He became a woman in 2004. Thou Art Freed was turned into a movie that did well at the box office, making $6.8 million. His company, TJ Enterprises, also made films like Heaven is for Real and Jumping the Broom, which took in over $100 million around the world. Jakes also had a TV show called The Potter's Touch that millions of people all over the world watched. He even started his own talk show in 2016, and later worked with Amazon to make a channel where his sermons and other material could be streamed. Jakes also built strong groups. Since its start in 1995, TD Jakes Ministries has been known for events like Woman Thou Art Loosed, which turned into a huge meeting. Over 52,000 people went to the event in Atlanta in 2004. Another thing that happened, more than 100,000 people went to MegaFest, which helped the local economies. TJ Enterprises, his business arm, grew into a big company with many departments that deal with movies, music, books, and real estate. The business said in 2022 that it would be building a $150 million apartment complex in Atlanta. TJ Enterprises was making more than $500 million a year by 2023. In 2001, Time magazine named TD Jakes the best speaker in the United States. It was a big deal. It came out right after the 9/11 attacks, when people all over the country were looking for hope. Time said that Jakes' message of mending and his ability to connect with people were great. The story on the cover made Jakes even more well-known. More people watch him on TV, and his book sold even more. TD Jakes has done a lot more than just be a teacher. He has helped leaders of the United States like George W. Bush, Barack Obama, and Donald Trump. He was in charge of the morning prayer service for Barack Obama's inauguration on January 20th, 2009. That was a big day. Yesterday, Obama became the first black president of the United States. Today, he became president. Jakes didn't end there. Among other people, he worked with President Rawlings of Ghana, President Obasanjo of Nigeria, and King Abdullah of Jordan. In 2014, he went to a dinner at the White House for African leaders. He was also there when Pope Francis came to the U.S. in 2015. This shows how Jakes ties religion and politics together and has an effect on people all over the world. Jakes began having talks with Americans in 2015, and they were mostly about big issues like racial inequality and changing the way the criminal justice system works. At a live event in 2016, he talked about these ideas with Chris Matthews of MSNBC. A lot of important people like Congress members and reporters were at this event, and it was streamed live to more than 1 million people. As you can see, Jakes combines spiritual guidance with taking real steps to fix issues. Jakes is also well known in Hollywood. His company has made films that have made more than $500 million around the world. In 2011, Jumping the Broom, one of his films, was the funny movie of the year. Another one was 2016's Miracles from Heaven, which starred Jennifer Garner. It was shown in these films that stories with religious themes could work in popular entertainment. Talked about his desire to reach more people. Jakes does more than just make films. He cares a lot about helping people. He started the TD Jakes Foundation in 2020 to raise $100 million for areas that need help. He worked with Wells Fargo in 2023 to give these towns $1 billion in resources. Early in 2024, $9 million had already been given to 16 groups. The foundation helps people find places to live, learning about money, and getting job training. Jakes also started TORI, which stand for the Texas Offenders Reentry Initiative, through which more than 42,000 former prisoners have been able to start over in life. People are given a second chance through this program, which helps them get jobs, find housing, and go to school. It's not just Jake's church that works hard to help people in need. The Potter's House does too. Jakes went with President George W. Bush to the places hit by Hurricane Katrina in 2005. With Megacare, the church has helped during many tragedies, such as the 2010 earthquake in Haiti. They gave out thousands of food to families in need during COVID-19. Jakes is also good at running a business. His real estate business makes neighborhoods better and builds affordable homes. In 2023, he worked with a Miami developer to build homes for families. He also writes books like Crushing, which is his best-known work, and leads programs to motivate others to be leaders. A lot of people come to his International Leadership Summit to learn about business and how to be a good leader. T.D. Jakes, on the other hand, has been arguing for years about what he thinks about the Trinity. In the late 1990s, he began to get questioned because he talked about the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit as signs instead of people. In light of this, some philosophers thought he held to modalism, which says that God is not three separate people, but just one person who shows up in three different ways. When Jakes went to the Elephant Room Conference in 2012, the issue blew up. Pastors James MacDonald and Mark Driscoll asked him straight out what he believed. Jakes said, "One God, three persons," which made it sound like he agreed with what most people believe. He later said he didn't like the word person and liked how it was used, saying it was a Bible word. This made people feel lost. Some people were upset that his church's website still used the word manifestations after this. Some people thought he was trying to change his mind, while others thought he was just trying to avoid being criticized. In 2016, a theologian said that Jake could still use words that made people doubt what he really thought. This is why a lot of conservative Christians still question him. Traditional churches have also said bad things about Jakes because of what he teaches and how he speaks. His ties to the Word of Faith movement are a big problem because many people think it spreads false beliefs. In 2001, it was said that Jakes told people watching a Trinity Broadcasting Network benefit that giving money would bring them good things like money, success, and good relationships. Giving as an act of faith, not as a way to get something in return, is what most Christians believe. This message went against that. In 2015, Jakes made a lot of noise when he said, "If you obey God, you will never be broke again." Some people thought this lesson about money was too simple and dangerous. Some people say that his talks feel more like self-help than real preaching because they mix motivational speak with Bible lessons. In 2007, he shocked people by speaking in tongues without explaining what he meant during a live lecture. The Bible says this shouldn't happen. People have also said that Jakes doesn't talk enough about sin and turning away from it. He said that white Christians care too much about abortion and same-sex marriage and not enough about social justice in an interview in 2019. He was called a false teacher by many conservative figures because of this. One more thing that causes trouble with Jakes is the wealth gospel. I think he teaches that having faith and following the rules will make you rich and successful. The way people live adds to this criticism. He was said to have lived in a $1.7 million home in 2005. They wore expensive suits and drove fancy cars, which some people said went against what Jesus taught about living simply. Jakes said in a sermon, "People need spiritual prosperity before they can have financial prosperity." This is seen as confusing by some because it equates spiritual maturity with wealth. In a tweet from 2017, Jakes said, "If you obey God, you will never be broke another day in your life." There are even reports of church members giving away all their savings and then having trouble with money afterward. Jakes says he is not a prosperity preacher, but his actions, like starting a program to train 1,000 millionaires, make people wonder what he is really up to. He says his lessons are meant to help people get out of poverty. A lot of people think that his teaching changes the gospel and helps him more than the people who follow him. People have said both nice and bad things about how TD Jakes feels about LGBTQ plus problems over the years. Said it might be because of bad parents or being abused. But he surprised a lot of people in 2015 when he said that the Black church and the LGBTQ plus community could live together and that each church and gay person was different. For some, this meant he agreed with partnerships between people of the same gender. There was so much reaction that Jakes had to make it clear that he did not support same-sex marriage. In 2021, he said that white evangelicals were putting too much emphasis on problems like same-sex marriage and not enough on poverty and racial justice. This showed that his views had changed. When Jakes preached in 2022, he said that standard gender roles don't work anymore. It wasn't about LGBTQ plus problems directly, but the fact that he did this showed that he was ready to question long-held beliefs. Because of these changes, conservatives have grown apart from him, but leftists and LGBTQ plus rights activists see him as becoming more accepting. There was a big case involving music mogul Sean. Bishop T.D. Jakes, who is the famous pastor of the Potter's House in Dallas. D.D. Combs. Combs was sued on March 25, 2024 by record artist Rodney Lil Rod Jones, who said he had done terrible things. A claim on page 47 of the case shocked a lot of people. It was said that Combs was going to use his relationship with Bishop Jakes to improve his public image after his ex-girlfriend Cassie Ventura said she had abused him. Everyone was shocked when Jakes' name came up, and it made people wonder about his friendship with Combs. People started to guess because the case didn't say how. Jakes and Combs had worked together before. In 2021, Jakes brought his lectures about kingdom culture to Revolt TV, which Combs helped to start. Jakes went to Combs' fancy birthday party in 2022. People began to wonder if their connection was stronger than it seemed after these events. Based on the case, it looked like Combs believed Jakes could use his status as a well-known pastor to shield him from public criticism. This thought shocked both the world of church and the world of fun. Things got worse when online rumors began to spread in late 2023. Some posts said Jakes had been to private parties given by Combs, but there was no proof for these claims. They did more damage to Jakes' character, though. People were interested in Jakes more when he didn't say anything about the claims at first. But he finally spoke during a Sunday lecture that was streamed to millions of people on April 15, 2024. He said the claims were lies meant to hurt his job as a preacher. He said the claims were an attack on his ministry and that he would fight back. A few days later, on April 18th, Jakes sued Rodney Lil Rod Jones for $100 million for slander. He said that the lawsuit's claims were not true and that it had done a lot of damage to his image. Jakes went after YouTube sites that were talking bad about him too. On May 2nd, 2024, he sued each channel and asked YouTube to show who was behind them. He wanted $50 million from each channel. He thought that these stations were making up stories about him with AI. Jakes didn't end there. To show he had nothing to hide, he made the accusations look into by appointing a board of trusted leaders and lawyers. They were able to look through all of his personal and church papers. Jakes even took a lie detector test to show that he was telling the truth. On July 15, 2024, the results were made public. He also let everyone see the church's financial records and made top leaders go through new rules every year, such as background checks. 12 years ago, on November 24, 2020, Bishop T.D. Jakes spoke to a huge crowd at the Potter's House in Dallas. More than 2.3 million people watched live, and over 12,000 people were there in person. He preached for about an hour about strength and weakness. After that, something shocking took place. In the exact 10:37 a.m., he prayed, "O Lord, my strength, my Redeemer, let them go in peace." He stopped talking. When he let go of the microphone, it made a loud noise that shut down the whole church. Jakes began shaking so hard he couldn't stop. His tall body, which is generally full of energy, was shaking. His skin turned gray and his eyes rolled back. The live stream showed everything, and he had trouble breathing for almost a minute. The people in the church were shocked. A lot of people started to pray, and some even spoke in tongues. The fear quickly spread. 3 elderly members passed out from worry. What's even worse is that this happened on the same day that the Potter's House was started. Back 28 years ago, it turned a day of joy into a day of fear. That's how quickly the church replied. Dr. Mariah Stevenson, a cardiologist in the front row, went straight to Jake's right away. She began to check his pulse and yelled commands. Marcus Washington, who was in charge of security at the church, quickly used Operation Shepherd's Staff, the emergency plan for the church. After this, the refuge was clear, with 3,000 people quickly leaving to make room for help. Then, Usher Sarah Martinez ran through the crowd to get the AED. It took her less than 30 seconds to get there. After 4 minutes, the paramedics showed up. Their work was quick, and emergency drugs and N4 were used to stabilize Jake's condition. The helicopter that was put up at the church about 15 months ago made a huge difference. Soon after, a helicopter came and took Jake's to Methodist Dallas Medical Center. Even though the flight only lasted 7 minutes, the people watching felt like it went on forever. At the hospital, Jake's had surgery that took 9 hours. His healing was very hard. He had 3 more surgeries and needed 47 units of blood. For 17 days, he was in the ICU, where nurses took care of him around the clock. 24 days after the event, on August 18th, Jake's made his first public showing in a video call to his congregation. His message wasn't long, but it was strong. He informed them that he had been through a dangerous situation and was now getting better. Just that movie brought in more than $4 million for the heart unit at the hospital. Jake's did a lot to get better. He went to physical therapy every day for hours and was helped by one of the best doctors. He also tried advanced oxygen treatment and stuck to a strict diet that nutritionists made for him. Jake's kept busy even while he was getting better. He wrote a new book called Reborn, Finding Strength in the Valleys of Life. From his hospital bed, he dictated the whole book. And when it came out 3 months later, it sold over 2 million copies in the first week and was an instant hit. Jake's went back to preaching on New Year's Eve. More than 18,000 people came to see him live, and 11 million more watched online. He seemed leaner, but full of life. His lecture, The Comeback King, made me feel things and gave me hope. People in the crowd cried as they heard him speak because his words were so powerful. It was an inspiring moment that showed everyone that you can get back up after the hardest times. In West Virginia, T.D. Jakes met Sarita Jameson in a small church. In 1982, T.D., who was only 23 years old at the time, was a guest speaker. 26-year-old Sarita was drawn to him right away. They were so close that they got married on May 29, 1982, only 6 months after they met. That was the start of their journey together, which was full of love and difficulties as they moved into a life in the public eye. They had 5 children together: Sarah, Cora, Jermaine, Thomas Jr., and Jamar. They were married for many years. It's never easy to raise kids, but I had extra problems because I did it in public. When their son Jermaine was arrested for public exposure in 2009, it made the news. The family had a rough time, but they got through it. Even with problems like this, their kids have done well. Sarah is a famous author, speaker, and mother of 6. She was born in 1988. Born in 1994, Thomas Jr. has made a name for himself as a song producer and TV host. He moved his church to Dallas, Texas. The whole family felt this change. It wasn't easy for Sarita and the kids to move to a new place and get used to their new lives, but they stuck together. TD and Sarita had been married for 42 years by 2024, and TD said that Sarita was his ride-or-die soulmate. Even when things went wrong, their love stayed strong. TD Jakes cared about more than just his family. People didn't know how busy he was because of his job. It began as a small church in 1996, but it has grown into a huge megachurch with thousands of followers. At his busiest, he led 4 long services on the weekends while also writing books, making films, and putting out songs. He had written more than 40 books, put out almost 20 albums, and made a huge number of pictures by 2024. He went to 16 countries and preached more than 150 talks in 2018. Because of this job, he missed a lot of important family events. One interview he gave said that he felt bad that he wasn't at his son's high school graduation. At times, TD brought his family to work, even though he had a lot going on. Sarita became a leader at their church and was in charge of the programs for women. Their daughter Sarah became a preacher and a writer, just like her dad, but they were still put to the test by life. In 2012, Sarita had surgery to fix a disc that had come out. TD had to care for her and work at the same time while she was healing. This showed him how important family is, no matter how busy life gets.